So in general, this is a Whispering Ice, so Ice Storm, with Winter's Orb as the castball channeling. You can see in the videos coming up the blast radius. So the idea was to use Ice Storm's ability to provide great leech and single target damage, and then using Winter's Orbs projectile damage to pick up the clear speed. This will eventually need to be a 6-link with Winter Orb, Castball Channeling, greater projectiles. This is for the Winter Orb, so we're firing enough that it actually gets good coverage. Life Leech, which is what's going to keep our energy shield maxed. We're recovering quickly. Concentrated effect and increased critical damage support. We are going crit. We have 4 power charges. Rest of the gear is basically just energy shields, and resist. Trying to stack as much int as we can on each piece, so that we can try and max out our intelligence. We are currently at 1500. We're going to try and push that closer to probably 1700, 1800 when said and done. The Cyclopean coil leather belt, with its 14% increased, its max is 15%. I'll min-max that later on. Plus 1% increased damage, so we're getting 1% increased per 5 of our strength. So it's about another 20% increased damage from the belt. If we look here at our damages, you can see it's about 1393 on the Winter's Orb per use, which is each ball basically. We're running temp chains, summon golems, and by flame and ice for the additional crit chance, flame for the additional damage. We're doing temp chains because with the chills provided by Whispering Ice, so the ice storm itself, plus the freezing that we're getting from Winter's Orb, critting quite often, everything basically just stays motionless on the screen for us, as you'll kind of see. The other aspect that we're running is Stormbrand, which we have here in a 4-link with blind, temp chains, and then curse on hit. The nice thing with using the Stormbrand is it hits often. It hits in an AoE area. So each one of these is casting in an area, and it'll attach to a boss. So during boss fights, these attach to the boss and actually stay with them. When you use Orb of Storms, you kind of place it, and that's it. And we don't really have a great way to trigger the lightning procs. We do run Herald of Thunder, but that's mainly just to get some extra shock going on, since we are running as a Scion, we've picked up Elementalist for the damage pen, not the 0 reflection, so we don't have to worry about reflect. The increased Herald effects, and our shocks are always giving us at least 10%, so we're gaining 10% from the shocks at least, if not more, if they crit. We picked up Assassin for the additional crit chance, power charge on crit strike, so that's our power charge generation. And then we also get the movement speed in addition, and then we'll pick these up, which will allow us to take this node for increased damage, energy shield, and we're running a pure talent, which gives us 25 all stats because we're connected to the Scion. We connected to the Witch for the extra mana regen. That way we don't have to worry about having much mana and just still being able to hold it. And then we'll connect to the Shadow, which will give us 0.5% to our crit chance. For the tree itself, we're basically coming down through here, putting fertile mines in to convert all the decks that we can into int. We pick the increased skill duration, and then we grab more jewels for conversion. So that's 20% int, another 10, another 10. We do Valpak, so our life leech is doubled. And of course we pick the int up here for another 30. We grab this wheel, I'm toying with going through the Ash, Frost, and Storm. It's got a lot of damage in there. If I've got the skill points or the levels later on. Come over here, once again, use Fertile Mind to convert this to Int. Get Chaos Inoculation, and then we pick up Ghost Reaver so that our Life Leech is applied to Energy Shield. Swing through here for these crit nodes. Then we come across, grab these ES nodes. Swing over, I've picked up the extra crit chance and multiplier so that we have extra crits, and this because we get Int, spell damage, and crit. Come across, once again, Fertile Mind, convert this to 30 Int. Grab some more Energy Shield nodes. Grab the spell damage per power charge. We're running 4, so that's 16% increased damage. Another node. This one has max energy, spell damage, and I picked up +2 energy shield gain for each enemy hit. It's a cheap gem. Eventually we're going to get a Watcher's Eye with the Discipline, where you get about 25 to 30 energy shield per hit. This is kind of just a mock-up of one. It does actually help because what ends up happening is you've got all your Winter Storms blasting, and each one of these kind of pelts or hits down here is generating another 2 or 4. So you're really actually generating about 20, 30, 40 ES per every little microsecond that this is falling. It actually ends up being more than you would expect. We're going to swing over, grab this side for the cold damage, and then the cold pin. Over here, we went down to get Int. We picked up Light of Divinity, which is another 20 Int, spell damage, cast speed, crit chance as well. Grab these 2 nodes for strength, and then used Brute Force. That's another 24 plus 10 plus 10. So that's another 44 Int basically on the tree there. We will swing through here and grab these for another Jewel Socket. Or we'll come up this way. Either way, same difference on the tree structure. Just depends if we can grab these or not. That's pretty much the tree. And the process. I'll show you some videos of how we're so defensive. Because the blind, basically what we have here is Stormbrand is cursing them with temp chains, slows them down drastically, 28% slow. Blind support then gives us a chance to blind enemies, 10% chance. Blind basically removes their accuracy by 50%, which when you take on the temp chains plus the blind, now they're attacking 30% slower and missing half the time. We also add on our Quartz Flax, which gives us another 10% to dodge, and we put on a Stibnite Flask, which creates a smoke cloud, which further lowers our accuracy. So basically the concept is we have high amounts of leech from our Ice Storm pellets, plus we're basically making it so when they do get off an attack, even though they're attacking super slow, there's almost no chance of getting hit in general. The other aspect that we do, because one of the problems with this build is, as you can see, it takes a half second to start getting anything going. So you're kind of stuck. So when you pop into an area and you need to, or hit a pack, or a syndicate mob pops up behind you, you've got to wait a second before your leech kicks in, before your damage kicks in, and before the chills, and for everything happens. You got a little bit of time before that happens. The way we fix that is, of course, we take Cast with Damage, Immortal Call, and we take Frost Wall. And what this basically does, as you'll see in the video, is anytime we get hit, it generates a big chunk of Frost Wall, which basically blocks enemies and pushes them back. Nice thing about Frost Wall when it's on Cast with Damage is it generates in front of the location of the enemy that hit you. So if you run up into a pack and there's a bunch of archers that are hitting you from a distance, the Frost Wall is actually generated in front of that pack, not in front of you. which is big time help. Then when you have things like the Syndicate and other bosses, a lot of times you can actually just imprison them because we have our duration nodes down here. Frost will actually last a decent amount of time. Um, so it's staying up quite a bit, and it covers 42 units because level 9 is about where it feels comfortable. Cast with damage at level 6 because we don't want it triggering all the time. Frostwall can only generate 3 at a time before it has to go through a cooldown scenario. Um, then we just pick up Frostbomb as an additional uh, piece. The Frost Bomb basically lets us reduce their cold resist by 25%, but it also reduces their life and energy recharge rates. So you can see 75% reduced life regeneration. So anything that's hit by it basically loses their life regeneration, which is huge on some of the Syndicate pieces. And it also counteracts some of the healing totems that they deal with. We're also running Purity of Ice, which basically, well, Val Purity Ice is the key piece. We're only running the Val piece so that we can ignore cold resistance, useful on bosses, um, just to wipe out their resist while you lay them down. So basically, we'll get them cornered with Frostwall, get them picked up into a pack here, and then lay our Purity down and let all the damage just rip through them real quick. Super useful to kind of clear off their piece. Herald of Ice, of course, gives us extra damage on our spells, all that kind of stuff. And we want to Shatter because everything's frozen and chilled. There's nothing that hits the screen that's not frozen or chilled. So everything is exploding, kind of having a free impulse basically on the screen. Arcane Support and Flame Dash. That way we can pick up our extra more damage tag. Running Discipline for the extra ES. Herald of Thunder for the damage and just some extra chance to remote shock packs. Well, not so much for the shock aspect, but you get what I mean. It's just extra free damage, and we have the mana to do it. I played around with, instead of using temp chains, on using frostbite, a few different things like that. The problem with this is if you have something that's highly moving and you start spreading this out in a big area, you're not getting a lot of density, and without the density, you're not getting a lot of damage. So when using temp chains in the chill and the frost walls, and they're kind of pinned into an area, you can force all this damage into a tight area and get a ton of overlap. And that overlapping damage is what's gonna basically keep you alive and just melt the mob. So it's better to actually keep them slow. You get more damage by having temp chains and keeping them in place or locked in place than you do by having them bouncing all around the screen and you're trying to keep up and counter it. So um, Flask, just kind of basic diamond with anti-freeze, running a quartz with remove curses. Because we're using Frostwall, you need to run a quartz just in case your flame dash is kind of burned out and you're stuck there for a second and you're behind a wall. You don't want to get caught where you can't flame dash through the wall. Quartz lets you just run right by it. Also, if you get into a place where you're trying to leech, you need just to get through or break through. There's a whole bunch of mobs. It's hard to get through a flame dash through a doorway. You can just quartz and run right past and get kind of reset up for the another attack. And that's about it. I'll post the links for the current build where I'm at, which is level 87, and then I will post what the final build will probably end up being here in a day or two. I'm running through maps now, just hammering through all of them. Should be into reds and shapers and elders and stuff like that by tomorrow afternoon, and I'll try and post an update then. Catch you later.